They thought they had banished us forever. But now, finally, we have returned.
Welcome back to the Writers Showcase, everybody. Always a pleasure to have you. So I'm just going to say some hellos to everybody. Welcome to Johan. Yeah, cake does sound delicious. Becca, I imagine that you made that cake recently. That sounds awesome. Welcome to Becoming Better / Brent Discord. Hello, Tarek. Welcome to the showcase. Hello, Blue. Always a pleasure. Azure. Anyway, allow me to bring in my always wonderful guests. How's everybody doing in the chat? Just give me some highs in the chat. Always a pleasure. Let me see. Who just barely commented? Welcome, Hypatia. Always a pleasure to have you. Birthday cake for your cousin. Happy birthday to your cousin, Becca. Anyway, please welcome Neph Champion.
Good afternoon and evening to everyone.
Hello. So, we have a few more guests. Please welcome our good friend, Count Valerian.
Hello, Valerian.
Greetings, brightness. Thank you, Sir Dunshap.
It's Bright Lord Dunshap to you.
Well, in that case, I'm Exalted Being.
Alrighty.
And greetings, you people in the chat.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the Way of Kings discussions at some point. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I have to finish it first. I'm about 5-6 minutes through, I think.
We only scraped the surface on Wednesday. There was so much more that we can talk about.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it is really, really good. Anyway, we have a few more people. Please welcome Carl Saylor.
Dan and none are bourgeois propaganda. All know this to be so.
Indeed.
Fair enough.
Indeed. And our final guest for the day, Tarek.
我が力、我が刃、我が狂気、我が狂気をもて見解せよ。エクスはーうがせエクスプロージョン。
I relate to that cat more and more each week.
Yeah, Valerian.
I checked out the first few episodes of Konosuba. It is freaking hilarious.
It's
I
amazing.
still need to watch that. God damn it! I keep going. Yeah, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch this. I get sidetracked by writing.
Yeah.
That's how you tell you're a writer.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I thought it was the arthritis.
Oh,
No.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Alrighty. So I think Carl. So Carl, you like have work later on, right? So.
I have 2 hours.
Okay.
I can, before I need to go to bed.
Okay. Cool. Alrighty. So we will. So Count Valerian, do you want to go last so that you can get all your stuff set up?
I should be. I mean, I've got my document ready.
Okay. So how about Neph and then Count Valerian?
Okay.
So as long as I
Varian
start
and
the
Carl.
form, okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right.
Okay. So I will be reading Foxes and Demon Slayers, which is something I started in the last couple of weeks. Yes, last couple of weeks. This is a Sword Art Online and Inuyasha crossover. Yes, obviously. To get away from an unwanted arranged marriage, Kirigaya Kazuto of the Hunter clan dives into Sword Art Online and becomes trapped for 2 years. Along the way, he meets a fox hanyo and gains a harem of girls capable of helping him repopulate his dwindling clan. Sorry. So, this is first chapter or prologue? I'm not sure which. Anyway, title is There is More Than One Way to Be Trapped. November 7th, 2022. Tokyo, Japan, Kawagoe, Kirigaya residence. No, grandfather, you aren't listening, Kirigaya Kazuto said as calmly as he could. I want nothing to do with this. Mom got to train Dad. Why can't I do the same? Kazuto, we've been over this. His aging grandfather, Kohaku, said sternly. Your mother got lucky. Very few people have the right mindset in these modern times. This girl does. Kazuto turned away and checked the time. 12 noon. He sighed. When is this meeting? He asked in defeat. Tomorrow afternoon after you get back from cram school, his grandfather said smugly. Kazuto sent his grandfather a glare over his shoulder. I'll be upstairs playing a game, he said, stomping away. Kohaku looked to Midori, who had her arms crossed over her chest. Kazuto has a point, you know. I did get to train my husband, and so did his mother, Midori said. And even if the girl in question does have exactly what we are looking for, she was traumatized and is now being shunned for the incident. That's not good for us. Kohaku sighed. You know I only want what's best for Kazuto and Sugara. Kazuto slammed his bedroom door and sighed. Yeah? There was a small two-tailed cat sitting on his bed. He blinked. Oh, Kirara. He sighed as he turned on his computer and sat in his desk chair. I don't get, grandfather. Why? I don't. The little Nekomata jumped from the bed and into his lap, and Kazuto wrapped an arm around the cat as he opened the MMO daily stream. It was a rerun, but he didn't care. Well, Kirara, today is the day. Kirara purred, rubbing her cheek against his. Kazuto chuckled, feeling his spirits lift. You know, this game was all I could think about during the beta test. There was a knock at his door. Big brother, are you okay in there? That was Sugaha's voice. I'm fine, Suga. You can come in if you like, Kazuto called back. I heard you had another argument with Grandpa, Sugaha said as she opened the door and stepped inside. It was the same thing as last time, wasn't it? It was, Kazuto said with a grimace. I wish he and Mom would lay off. Going to escape into SAO for a few hours? Sugaha asked with a bright smile. I was planning on it. It's just too bad you have kendo practice this afternoon, Kazuto agreed. Then we could have both escaped for a few hours. I'll be able to join you tomorrow afternoon, Sugaha said with a grin. Kirara, look after my silly brother for me, okay? Kirara meowed happily. See you at dinner, big brother. Suga said with a cheerful wave as she left his bedroom, closing the door behind her. Kazuto turned, opening his curtain to watch her as she left the house. Once Suga was out of sight, Kazuto checked his clock. 12:30. Time to get his snack for later. Sword Art Online. Einkrad first floor. Town of Beginnings. Kirito breathed in deeply once he logged in and opened his eyes. Hello, world. I'm back, he whispered as he smiled. Let's see. Check my inventory first and buy a sword if needed. Then it's out to the fields to grind. Kirito waved his hand downward to open his menu and checked his inventory. He had 1,000 core in his wallet and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw a starting sword. It appeared over his shoulder when he equipped it. Closing his menu, Kirito ran through the streets. Hey, wait! An older man's voice called. Kirito stopped, turning around. Can I help you? Are you a beta tester? The other player asked hopefully. I am. Was there something you needed? Kirito replied with a question of his own. The player grinned. Please teach me to play the game. Kirito studied the man for a moment. Minute, sorry. All right, I can do that, he said. How did you figure out I was a beta tester? Kirito asked as he led the man to the edge of the safe zone. As they left the safe zone, Kirito saw several other players trying to play the game. Well, since he was going to give this guy some pointers anyway, he might as well do it for these players too. It looked like they could use some help. Kirito gave a bit of a whistle, catching their attention. One by one, the other players approached, and Kirito began to feel a bit nervous. He grinned when he recognized one of them. Hey, Koharu, he greeted his fellow beta tester. Hey, Kirito, Koharu said with a smirk. Gotta give out a few tips? Was planning on it, since this guy here, Kirito gestured to his companion, asked me to give him a bit of a tutorial. Koharu nodded. I think I'll help since large crowds make you nervous. Thanks, Koharu. Kirito turned to the rest of the players. May as well get started. I'm Kirito. I was a beta tester. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask either myself or my friend Koharu here. Koharu gave the group a cheerful smile and a wave. Hi, I'm Koharu, she chirped. I am also a beta tester. Kirito knows more about SEO than I do, but I'll try my best to answer any questions you may have. If I can't, then I will send you Kirito's way. Both Koharu and Kirito looked at the player who'd asked Kirito for help. He blushed. I'm Klein. This is my first time playing with the nerve gear. A girl with long red hair and green eyes slowly raised her hand. I'm Asuna. This is my first game ever. A petite girl grinned as she bounced in place. I'm Silica. Nice to meet you all. I'm Yuna, and this is Nautilus, Yuna said, gesturing to her friend. I hope we can all work together smoothly and become friends. Well, then, shall we get to work? Kirito asked. The rest of the group agreed with a bit of a yell and scattered across the field to make sure no keel stealing happened. Kirito turned to Koharu. Thank you for offering to help me teach them all. Oh, it was my pleasure, my friend, Koharu said, slapping Kirito on the back. Klein, you are doing it wrong, Kirito said with a shake of his head. But he won't stand still, Klein complained as the frenzy boar he was fighting dodged his attack. Kirito laughed. What do you expect? He's not a training dummy. He picked up a small rock. Look, as long as you're facing the correct direction and get the pre-motion right, you'll hit the mob. The pebble in his hand began to glow. You need to hold it for a few seconds and then let it just explode, Kirito finished as he threw the pebble. Explode? Klein asked. Yeah, Koharu said, as Kirito's pebble hit the hindquarters of the frenzy boar. Nautilus, who had been watching carefully, turned to his own mob. He held his one-handed sword next to his head, waiting for the sword skill to activate. Then, something happened. The sword skill was ready, But the moment the mob charged, Nautilus felt his body lock up on him. He could do nothing but scream. Kirito looked up and pulled his sword out, dashing towards Nautilus, catching the mob before it could get to the terrified player. You all right, Nautilus? Kirito asked, turning to the team. Nautilus swallowed. Yeah. What was that? What was what? Koharu asked as she and the others arrived to help. I froze, Nautilus replied. Why did I freeze? Kirito frowned. Are all your senses connected to the nerve gear properly? Nautilus blinked at Kirito. They should be. Is there a way for me to check in-game? It should be in the options menu under settings. Kirito waved a hand, opening his menu. Nautilus blinked down at the window in front of him and pressed accept. Then he went to check his settings. You think Nautilus has a problem? Kirito turned to Asuna, who had somehow managed to sneak up on him. Nautilus might have what we call full dive nonconformity.
Oh.
Does that mean the person is not connected to the nerve gear properly? She looked between the two young men curiously. Yes, his frown softened. It can manifest in different ways. Loss of depth perception, being rendered mute or deaf. I seem to not be connected properly. Nautilus' shoulders slumped. Does this mean I can't play? Koharu gave his shoulder a squeeze. You can still play. It's just going to be harder for you to fight mobs. She gave him a smile. You don't have to fight. You can become a merchant or a blacksmith. Nautilus managed a weak smile. I thought there wasn't a job system in this game. There isn't. Kirito shook his head. However, all the skills to become a blacksmith or a merchant can be found in the skill list. Nautilus looked back down at his menu thoughtfully. Maybe I'll do that then. There was a shout, and the group turned their attention back to Klein, who had just killed a frenzy boar using his sword skill. Great job, Klein! Kirito gave him a high five. Thanks, Kirito, Klein grinned. I'm having fun, Asuna said with a grin. Can we continue, please? Yuna, Nautilus, Klein, Koharu, and Kirito all shared smiles. That sounds like a wonderful idea, Kirito agreed. They were all sitting together, laughing in companionship several hours later. This is such a wonderful time to live in, Yuna sighed happily, leaning against the tree. Asuna agreed. What a beautiful sunset. I'd almost think that we were actually outside and not in a game. It's not quite right, Kirito pointed out. By design. Asuna blinked, turning to him. Why is that? Because if it's too close, everything would fall into what is called Uncanny Valley, where it's so close it's creepy and off-putting. Kirito leaned back against the tree. Still, very pretty. Asuna giggled, pushing herself to her feet. Shall we continue? Yeah, let's go, Yuna said, jumping to her feet. Nautilus pouted but followed his friend. Kirito chuckled as he rested his arms on his knees. I'd love to, Klein said, putting his hand on his stomach, but I'm starving. Then perhaps you should log out and eat, Kirito said. I've got a snack ready. Asuna, Yuna, and Nautilus all nodded along, indicating they were all prepared too. I'm all set. Klein grinned at them all, giving them a thumbs up. I ordered pizza to be delivered at 5:30. Nautilus opened his menu to check the time. It's almost 5:30. Eh? Klein opened his own menu to check the time and log out. Guys? Koharu turned. What's up, Klein? Where is the logout button supposed to be? Klein asked. It's supposed to be the third button right under options, Kirito said, opening his menu. It's not there, Klein said so quietly they all had to strain their ears to hear him. The logout button is gone. He's right, it's gone, Kirito said as Koharu and the rest opened their menus. Was there another way to log out? Asuna asked in a trembling voice. No, Koharu shook her head. We can only log out through the menu. What about contacting the game master? Yuna asked. I'm trying, Nautilus said. Can't get through. Could this be a bug? Asuna asked, looking at the rest of the group over her menu. This is too major to be a simple bug, Kirita replied. Not being able to log out will kill this game. Their world went white. And that's it.
Very good initial setup.
Thank you.
Interesting. I do like the fleshing out of the argument at the beginning of the thing, the argument with his grandpa.
Thank you.
It does provide a distinct amount of context for that first episode.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Alrighty. I believe it is Count Valerian's turn. Or no, unless everybody else has any more feedback to give.
I just went on a whole rant when I was still muted. What I was gonna say was I don't understand why people bitch about being trapped in an MMO. Like, tell me the food in Final Fantasy XIV does not look delicious.
Yeah.
So I hate it when the logout button doesn't work. But,
Yeah.
but can they do a hard reset and just hold down the power button? Shh.
Not if you're in like a neural net. You probably have no control over your physical body.
Yeah, that's what the nerve gear and atmosphere both do. They cut off your ability to feel, to move your body, even though the atmosphere makes it so that you can react to outside stimulus should you need to.
That would be a little awkward.
Yeah, it would be.
I think so.
You need a restroom break or something.
Yeah.
I guess like they have Iron Man's recyclable thing.
That or maybe it's like a time dilation thing where like the time you spend in the computer is maybe 5 minutes when you could spend mentally 500 years in the system.
That's actually what happens in the very last season.
Huh.
Yeah.
What do you know? I can write anime.
No,
I don't think it's that hard to write anime.
Yeah,
That is true.
in all of the seasons before that, it's 1-to-1. So a minute in game equals a minute outside.
Jesus.
Yeah.
When we were doing
in there.
When we were doing that Wonder Woman 1984 thing, we were writing anime. I mean, pans and raccoons and stuff.
I still need to write a scene in there where they're watching. Since I don't think even Dragon Blaster is not ridiculous enough to write a pansexual raccoon. So I'm just going to have it be a Captain Planet type moment where it's that Captain Planet episode where they like try to talk seriously about AIDS and they fail miserably. I'm gonna do that with this one. I'm gonna do that, and basically like they go into like a Walmart or something, and they say like, and they just are watching the cartoon, and it's just like, what the fuck?
What's that?
Yeah.
I interpret it as that you were going to have a raccoon come out like Smokey the Bear and give a PSA about the dangers of pansexualism.
You know what? Maybe. You know what? That wouldn't be too bad, honestly. It would be like, wow, these people are nuts.
Yeah.
I have at least like 1 to 2 friends who are pan, so I'm just like I know what it's like to kind of be like offended by a portrayal of thing in media when like just the only Mormon character I've ever seen in a movie that was not made by Mormons had sex with a child while he was on his mission in a foreign country, and then he blew his brains out. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's a good reason why we get into the CIA a lot.
To be fair, you do have depictions in South Park, and they aren't negative like at all. They're actually very positive.
I've never seen South
Occupation
Park.
Army. Yes, it's built in to the world that if you eat in the virtual world, you're not feeling hungry anymore once you log out.
But do you have the nutrients? But do you have the nutrients, though?
No, you don't.
Oh, that might
Your
be a
body
problem.
has been tricked into thinking that you've eaten.
The
That's
ultimate
what's
weight
going
loss
on.
machine, then.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, something like that.
All right.
No, your feeling of hunger would go away, basically.
But your body is dying. There is no stopping that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey.
Just getting stretched.
Not like Oscar the Grouch.
That's getting to the spear, all right.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I'm figuring out where to put that, but it should be in there somewhere. I just need to figure out where to insert a grocery run.
Hopefully they won't turn into a dragon at the grocery shop either.
You know what? That might actually be funny.
You need to have the popcorn. You need to have the popcorn scene where like they blow fire and then down the aisle, popcorn just starts going off all over the place like it's a firebomb.
Yes.
That does sound awesome.
Yes, it does.
And then this would be the thing to do that one.
I'm telling you, man. Animated series, you're gonna make all kinds of money.
Well, we already have the covers finished.
Yeah, you should take a look at it. It looks so awesome. Space Junk is really, really cool.
Space Junk did an amazing job. I have.
Yeah, he did. Or
Talented chap,
well,
yes.
they did. Sorry.
Well, he's a guy, as far as I know.
Well, yeah. Okay.
I guess we better let Balerion start before we go down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, we should.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
Okay, so this is chapter 7. Lady Margaret. The Emperor wants the heroine to join his Barusa, which is like his harem, essentially. So, to this letter, Pylamar had sent a fulsome, if irrelevant, reply about how exalted wisdom and piety transcend the comprehension of lesser souls, in similar sentiments. It had been the best he could come up with on short notice. Exalted Box, or its counselors, responded to this by sending the same letter as before, but in a more emphatic script. This arrived at Serthaton a few months after their return. To say that the imperial request put the Count and Countess in an awkward position would be an understatement. How to say no without courting death, not for themselves alone, but for their people. They held many lengthy conferences on how they and Margaret might escape the Emperor's wrath. The only thing protecting us is the wisdom of the Emperor's counselors, observed Pylamar one night of many, before they said their evening prayers. And he who builds on the wisdom of a Malalaama or a Mpu'u builds upon sand. Can't the Emperor just ignore them anyway? Karuna looked up from her distracted sewing. Or even have them killed? He can. Pylamar began to pace around the chamber. Fortunately, he has little interest in governing, and leaves most of it to them and to various corrupt officials, or the realm would be even worse off than it is already. So we should ask them to intercede for us? Yes, but it is difficult. The Yaji can indeed be... A gift to the Temple of Celestial Splendor would not be amiss. What we can offer Mpu'u, I don't know, though he does have a birthday coming up. Perhaps a panegyric tapestry? That might work. He'll see through it, of course, but he might nonetheless be willing to take our side. But Malala Ama and Mpu'u can only aid us up to a point. If it pleases Ekwekwe to do so, he can just have them imprisoned or even, as you say, killed. And then we are truly in for it. But then, so is the entire realm. Angara have mercy on us all. Kara intercede for us, yes, but at least we have a sort of plan. I don't expect this to end well, as I've said any number of times, but I don't want to sit around and wait to die and for them to seize Margaret and drag her to the Barusa by force. And now, you had best say our prayers, and then you may as well get what sleep you can while I draft the letters. So they took out the rosaries, said their prayers with a special intention for Margaret's safety and that of their people, and lit the candles before the sacred images. Then the Countess went to bed and a fitful sleep. The Count sat up for a while longer, composing the letters. The letter to Malala Ama was relatively straightforward, and consisted primarily of a string of aromatic quotations pertaining to the virtues of generosity to sacred persons and things, of gratitude for said generosity, and of chastity, along with a hefty dose of flattery. Mpu'u would be a tougher nut to crack. That his birthday was next month was, indeed, convenient, but how would they handle the fact that he would probably wish for more gifts afterwards? By sending panegyric poems in recognition of his benevolence and mercy and whatnot? That would show a want of finesse, and Mpu'u hated it when people showed a want of finesse. Sending multiple gifts would be even worse than not sending multiple gifts. In the end, Pylamar decided it would be best to send Mpu'u a very valuable birthday gift and hope that that would suffice to move him to benevolence on their behalf. It would be very expensive, and the gift to the temple was going to be more than expensive enough. But it would be less expensive than getting a lot of people killed. And, speaking of getting killed, it might postpone the day of reckoning for Pylamar as well. He was in no hurry to die, especially as Margaret was in no wise ready to rule. She was still half a child. Half a moment. Sorry, just grabbing some water. The next day, the Count shared this plan with the Countess and immediately hastened to put it into effect. Since Mpu'u was a prickly customer who would take offense at receiving his gift after Malala Ama, and still more at receiving one of lesser worth, they decided to tackle him first. Markaruna sewed a beautiful tapestry with gold and silver threads, depicting in the center a very idealized portrait of Mpu'u, and around him were aromatic and historical vignettes of just and merciful princes, along with allegorical symbols of justice and mercy. Meanwhile, the Count wrote a fulsome letter congratulating Mpu'u on his birthday, while delicately praising his virtues and gracefully requesting that he intercede on their behalf. He could only hope it was panegyric enough, but not that fatal too much. Mpu'u hated excessive praise, almost more than no praise at all. Only when this missive had been sped upon its way did he send the letter to the Yaji, along with a hefty bit of cash. Hopefully this will at least give us a breathing space, he told his wife. The gift to Malala Ama was, if anything, too successful. When they received a response next month, the Yaji, yes, gave fulsome thanks, but broadly hinted that more munificence would be most welcome. It was jolly lucky that the castle's finances were relatively good. The letter was very flowery and very vague, and, apropos of long-winded compliments, to Great One's piety expressed the obscure but not unpromising hope that it would be rewarded. Mbu'u sent a shorter missive thanking them for this unexpected and I dare say quite coincidental generosity, and promised to see what he could do for them. That was about as unsarcastic as the prince was likely to get. A letter from, or at least signed by, Ekweke arrived later this same month. It was identical to the first two, but at least it was no worse. All this correspondence was shared with Margaret. You have the right to know, said her father, both because you are my successor and because in any case the matter chiefly concerns you. You will need to be prepared for whatever eventuality may arise. I hate destiny, said Margaret. We all do, but must be ready for it nonetheless. Margaret bowed her head. I know, father. Margaret's reluctance to think about her destiny did not in the least mean that she gave no thought to the future. Quite the contrary. She had a strong presentiment that one day she would need to know how to fight in order to defend herself, and perhaps others as well. She knew that she could not rely on her father's protection forever. This was one reason why she had decided to learn sword fighting. Margaret had indeed always loved swords and had long dreamt of fighting with one. But her father's wars against the barbarians of the Northwest did not interest or inspire her. She was drawn rather to stories of just causes and last stands against evil. The story of Azarhun and Marnil and their long, bitter war against the Chuggan tyrant particularly moved her. And she had a special devotion to Nihandra, that aspect of God which was devoted to the defense of justice and of the weak. This devotion had only grown after the incident with Daraimi, whom she longed to challenge to a fight. Her love of swords was a major reason why she enjoyed visiting the smithy in the southern castle grounds when she could. It was strongly discouraged at best, forbidden at worst, especially while the smith was working, as it was dangerous and not considered at all appropriate for a female. So before her teens, she durst not go there, and even then she only visited on holidays after the service. The smith would not be at work on those days, and she had a better chance of getting there without being detected. The building itself fascinated her. Why is it of stone? She asked on one of her visits. None of the other buildings here is. Because the fire here is very hot, my lady, said the armorer, Maravier, rising from the boulder he used as a stool and making a polite bow. Is that why there is a moat around the hearth? Yes. The metal must be put in there to cool. Why is that tube lying against the wall? That is the bellows. Why does my lady wish to know these things? It is not for you. You have no need to know. I'm curious. I want to know everything that's going on in the castle grounds. The smith gave a light nod, which passed for a shrug. These lordly people were strange, and the young lady was strangest of all. Nonetheless, Margaret was nothing deterred and visited the smithy as often as she thought she could get away with it. Shortly after her 15th birthday, a letter arrived from court that redoubled Margaret's determination to learn about sword fighting. It was the same as the others, but with a postscript. Exalted patience is long, but not unending. This had been sent on a day when Exalted was in a mood and could not be completely restrained by his counselors. After reading this letter, Margaret awaited an opportunity to visit Maravier, and the next chance she got, she slipped over to the smithy with a special assignment for him. She had been reading in the library about the various types of swords and had asked the armor about the swords that she had seen in the smithy. There were 3 types of swords in use in Ihalamu: a light, flexible boomerang sword, slightly curved, which came from Terrania; a sharp, stiff sword, commonly a hand and a half, from Shugga via Sondaron, and perhaps ultimately from Cambria in the far south; and the old, rounded Minderite sword, less sharp than the other 2, but also perhaps less brittle. Mulling over the different types, she had come upon a sword design that she wanted. "You can make all 3 types of sword. Is that true?" she asked the armorer one day. "Yes, my lady. I can make Terranian, Sondaranian, and Minderite swords." "Can you make a sword that would combine the qualities of all 3? "Yes, my lady. I am the best smith in Ihalamu. I have that skill." "Can you make one light enough for me to use?" Marvier hesitated. "A hand and a half sword might be light enough, but, my lady, I do not believe it is permitted for you to use a sword." "Well, I might have to know how one day. I will rule here, and who knows what might befall." "I would have to ask." "I'm not using it to fight, not yet. I just want to have it in case I need it. Would you? I'll give you a special gift if you do. I'll embroider an image of Chandra teaching the first smith, Ezero, for you, to protect you when smithing. Chandra is one of the attendants upon Nyaja and have brought the arts of civilization to mankind. As my lady wishes. Can you etch in the blade a picture of a crow rescuing a funuru? That's a soft-fluffy animal. It's my symbol." That was a tall order for the armorer. "It is difficult, my lady." Margaret hesitated, but her heart was set on it. She had even chosen a name for the sword, Sishvar, or the crow's beak. "Please? I know it's hard, but you're so skilled that if anyone can do it, you can. And I'll embroider the tapestry with gold." The appeal to Marvier's skill in forging, coupled with the promise of a valuable gift, proved to be enough. "As my lady commands." "Thank you. I'd better go. They'll be wondering where I am. And I'm reading a book of examples of justice that I want to get back to." The armorer, who couldn't read except on the most elementary level, was duly impressed. He bowed again, and Margaret half walked back to the castle library, where she tried to concentrate on her book in spite of the mounting excitement. Let's see. And let's see. Maybe I'll stop there.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I like the defying gender norms. That's always a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all cultures have something like that. Hopefully not too many confusing names in there.
Oh dear, Frome. I'm now having PTSD flashbacks.
What?
There's this idiot called Cold Crash Cinema. He basically shills for this weird piece of modern art that's essentially a frame by frame color grading of the movie.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, dear.
And it's like, this is the guy who introduced us to Joshua David Bellin, who he actually likes for some reason.
Oh,
yeah.
good lord.
And that's the framing shop, am I right?
Yep, Framing Monsters, yeah.
All right, fair enough.
I agree, Becca. Margaret is the best.
Yeah, Margaret's cool.
Who's the boss?
I like her. Margaret.
All I have to add is I was watching Disenchantment last night for the first time, and the order that she's giving this This poor blacksmith. All I could think of, it sounds like something out of the show. I want a sword. Okay, we can do that. I want it to have this, this, and this, and this, and this. I don't know. Don't worry, just put it on Daddy's tab.
well, I mean, she is a high nobility after all. She probably has a bit of that attitude. Although by noble standards,
Maybe
she's
a
not,
little bit.
by noble standards, she's pretty good though.
Not a high bar,
So
though.
she's not a complete and utter spoiled brat. She's just a little bit spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, she wants to help the poor and that, so she's, which is not necessarily as common as one would like among the elites.
Why, I never help the poor.
They wouldn't put it that way. They would. I don't suppose
We need
so.
to tax them more.
You're not wrong.
Poverty will do them good anyway, you know.
Communism intensifies.
Hello.
Indeed.
That
Oh,
reminds- that might-
before I forget, harumph, I say. There we go.
Oh, tish and pish, fiddle faddle,
I will never
cold
see.
and poppycock.
I will
Why
never
don't
see
you-
Jurassic.
Oh, right, Bellin. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
My
You know what?
parody-
I'm probably not going to be able to enjoy Jurassic Park ever again because of that damn book.
I don't think it's gonna. I don't think
reading
it's not that bad. It's bad, but I think like my analysis, kind of the analysis of something like that does not make it better or worse. It's just this man is a nutty person.
I was just going to.
Yeah, I'm surprised the squirrels haven't tried to drag him off yet.
Yeah, I was just going to say that my rabbit parody that I read the other day has Marxist-Leninist rabbits in it.
Oh,
Apropos of nothing.
Interesting. I may have to spy on this work.
So maybe sometime I'll read that chapter. Actually, there are a couple of chapters. So maybe I'll have to read those sometime.
I'll be sure to critique your theory for you.
And I have a friend who has communist orcs too.
Well, what is it? Red makes things go faster? I guess the red is making society collapse faster.
Hmm.
That was a 40
Capitalism makes society collapse. Just ask the 90s.
Just ask the 90s.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The 90s was not a good time for us economically, but anyway, I believe that it is our friend Carl Saylor.
Excellent. So, as you may have remembered from last week, I was in the middle of reading a piece wherein a war was being planned, and I left about halfway in the middle of it, as is generally where the halfway point lies. And now, we will continue. About 2 hours into the meeting, the door opened and a troop of wave girls wheeled a trolley into the chamber to deliver a light working lunch. The air danced with the aroma of tea and warm biscuits and the soothing hum of idle conversation. Lord Wingate downed his biscuit almost completely whole, and was relieved when a quick glance about the table revealed that he was not the only one. Planning a war was hungry work. I must say, Wolfgang, I'm very interested in these Annalarian irregular units that you've been talking about, Lord Stolos said, as he accepted a cup of Dalton Gold from the refreshment trolley. I've a number of ideas of what ought to be done with Annalaria once this business is finished, and these irregulars might just be the very thing to... I don't believe it's wise to discuss that right now, Lord Harlock said, leveling a suspicious eye at the wave girls. It would be better to wait until the room is ours once more. Oh, come now, Stolos scoffed. We're all on the same side here. What's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen, Lord Harlock said. is that sensitive information somehow finds its way to the press, and then we have to interrogate the lot of them to determine which girls get their heads chopped off for espionage. Lord Wingate glanced up at the wave of girls moving about the table. The darlings appeared to be making a heroic effort to ignore everything being said, but he couldn't help but notice a slight tremble in the wrist of one of the girls as she leaned forward to set another biscuit on his plate. She knew perfectly well that Lord Harlock was not exaggerating in the slightest. Stolos, on the other hand, turned white as milk. You're not serious, are you? Wingate, is he serious? I believe the precaution is the point. The rule exists not necessarily as a prescribed punishment, but as a deterrent, Wingate said, as diplomatically as he could manage, while also sending a vicious glare in the direction of Rockport before the man could loudly bring up that time when Malden's idiot niece leaked the position of his flagship to the press. There was no need to stoke up that buried rivalry again. Eventually, the Wave Girls departed and the meeting resumed. Just as soon as Lord Stolos could recall where the conversation had left off. In time, the matter of shared strategy came up. Generally speaking, Lord Harlock explained, as the lieutenant spread out a map of Annalaria, showing here. We'll want to keep our main axis of advance centered along the path of the Great Western River for the sake of keeping an organized column of supply. We will, of course, have to mount the occasional flank clearing operations, particularly south to the border hills and north to Mount Blood. Once our troop ratios are more favorable and we have received sufficient strategic depth in the Jingyu area, we can open up a second axis of advance out of Fasat directed through the border wood towards Illyria. I estimate we can be in full control of Annalaria within anywhere from 6 to 10 years, depending on how quickly we can come to full strength. Lord Wingate nodded along to Lord Harlock's explanation. It was a very sound strategy, almost unimaginatively so. It followed army doctrine right down to the letter. Concentrate overwhelming force in one area of the line and smash, smash, smash away. 6 to 10 years? Why so long? Stolos asked. Wars take time, Harlock shrugged. It's over 1,500 clicks from Jingyu to the crucial pass at Kao Tai, as the airship flies, and even longer following the river. Our 6 to 10 year estimate is based on our present strength and taking previous rates of advance and enemy resistance into account. What if... Lord Stolos squinted at the map. What if we came at them from the side, through the great unclaimed north, for example? It's been tried before, Lord Harlock said. It was a complete disaster. 10 whole regiments froze to death before they even made it halfway. The logistics are simply too difficult. There are no rivers, polar gusts are too unpredictable for airships to safely operate, and even at peak summer there isn't enough forage for the troops to live off the land. Well, what if we hit them from the south, then? Lord Stolos offered. Through the Annalarian disputed zone towards Illyria. We'd run into the same problem, Lord Harlock said. No way to keep our troops in supply. The White River runs too quick, and the Lonely River is too shallow for navigation. We would need to keep troops supplied by airship or an overland wagon train, and that many troops tasked with logistics at this early stage would reduce the effectiveness of our main... Actually, Lord Stolos interrupted, I've read a number of proposals to tame the White River using a series of dams, locks, and artificial lakes. It is even possible that we could establish a link between the White River and the Green River at Fasat, thus creating a continuous corridor of economic development all the way down to... I'm sorry, Lord Harlock interrupted back. Are you proposing that we embark on a vast multi-year civilian engineering process which is going to consume the labor of Dawn only knows how many men in the middle of a war within sight of the front lines? Stolos shrugged. I'm just trying to make sure we don't overlook any unconventional solutions. Actually, Lord Wingate spoke up, recalling the notes he'd found in Lord Hanscom's office, I may have one such solution. Stolos' eyes lit up at once. Oh, by all means, let us hear it then. It's simple, really, Lord Wingate said. If we cannot go around the enemy, then we shall go over them. Is this that combined Annalarian offensive that old Hanscom was always banging on about? Lord Harlock grumbled. It is, Wingate said, and he proceeded to explain Lord Hanscom's plan. He outlined the feint defense ruse and the three-wave airborne attack principle that Hanscom had come up with. He went over the special training that would be required to drop troops from airships and the modifications that would be needed to be seen to existing equipment. Lord Wingate added his own touches, of course, placing greater emphasis on seizing crucial road junctions and supply dumps, and downplaying the role of the Annalarian irregulars. All the while, he carefully watched for any reaction from Stolos. I don't think it's a good idea, Lord Harlock said, predictably. This is the sort of gambit that's never been tried before. We have no notion of whether or not it will succeed. Well, there must be a first time for everything, Lord Wingate said. This is no time for fanciful ideas or overly complex trickery, Lord Harlock said, seeming a little defensive now. We need a strategy that is direct and fundamentally bomb-proof. Wingate narrowed his eyes. Oh, I see what you're on about, Wolfgang. Lord Harlock wanted the army to dictate the strategy of the coming war, and of course to claim all the glory that came with it. If he had his way, the fleet would only play a supporting role, its true war-making potential squandered on scouting and brute force battery actions. Lord Harlock was letting his own pride and lust for laurels hamstring the kingdom's chances for victory. War means taking risks, Lord Wingate raised his voice to match Harlock's tone. If nothing is ventured, nothing can be gained. Ventures and gains? Lord Harlock spluttered. This isn't some bloody investment scheme, Wingate. This is war. You're talking about gambling with thousands of lives, potentially millions. Your fellow countrymen mean so little to you that you would toss their lives away on a fool's chance. This is madness. Well, now, that's touched a nerve, Lord Wingate noted. Harlock could be quite the propagandist when he was agitated. You seem content to subject the army to a decade-long meat grinder, Wingate fired back a salvo. My plan has the potential to shave years off that timescale and save millions of lives in the process. It would be madness not to try. I'm afraid I must agree with my Lord Harlock, Lord Stolos said. War should not be run like a business. The realm must have certainty in this regard. Oh, my lord, please, Lord Wingate said, trying to tamp down his frustration. I would urge you to reconsider. It will require a good deal of time to rebuild our forces in any case before taking action. There's plenty of time to work out the necessary details and conduct pilot studies. To limit our operations at this early stage would be... Let it go, Wingate. We all need the fleet to stick to what it does best, Harlock said, clearly suppressing a wicked smirk. The fleet is a floating artillery detachment, he was saying, and as long as I'm in charge, so it shall remain. Harvar is just our adversary, Lord Wingate remembered the old saying as he leaned back in his seat. Our true enemy is the army. Lord Stolos cleared his throat. Now, with that settled, I believe that covers everything on the day's agenda. Does anyone have anything else to add before we adjourn? Wingate glanced around the table. Nobody spoke up. Several of the civilian figures shifted restlessly in their seats, clearly eager to be on the next express out of the capital. Lord Wingate did not want to have to disappoint them, but there is one lingering issue. As expected, a wave of groans passed around the table. What is it, Wingate? Lord Stolos said, no longer bothering to conceal his exhaustion. If I am correct that you intend to wage a total war, Lord Wingate said, then we must immediately cease all trade with Illyria. The proposal was followed immediately by a burst of gasps from the far end of the table. Wingate clenched his jaw. I should have expected as much. You cannot be serious, Wingate, Blackpool said. Cutting off the Illyrian connection is madness. Others quickly seconded Blackpool's protests. A trade embargo with an enemy vassal state seems a sensible precaution enough to me, Lord Stolos said. Is there something about this I'm not seeing? Well, it's hardly necessary, my lord, Richard Walker said. During the previous war, the Illyrian connection remained open, with a few reasonable restrictions. And it was the wrong decision, Lord Seabrook broke in. Illyria has been chafing against Hadvari control for generations. We could have had that entire region in open revolt. Why, we could have even sold them the weapons with which to do it. You have to understand the economics of the matter, my lord, Walker continued, trying to ignore Seabrook. So many factories depend upon specialty resources from Illyria. You mean so many of your factories? Wingate said. A wealthy industrialist, Walker had a clear conflict of interest where Illyrian trade was concerned. Not factories only, Lord Blackpool said. My own Blackpool Trading Group has recently expanded into the Illyrian markets, and our shareholders do expect a certain return on their investment. Well, I certainly commiserate with you on the unfortunate timing of your venture, Lord Stolos said, sounding entirely too smug. But the realm cannot afford to make exceptions in this case. I'm sure you can explain to your shareholders why they shall have to accept the loss. We're not just talking about a single failed investment, said Baron Lawrence Putney, the acting secretary of the Treasury. He'd barely said more than a dozen words during the whole meeting so far, yet he seemed terribly animated by now. Financial disruptions like this can have a destabilizing effect on the entire economy of the realm. Bankers will refuse to lend money, thousands will be out of work, millions of crowns of tax revenue shall be lost completely up in smoke. You keep your financial witchcraft out of this, Putney, or I'll have you and your entire bureau burnt at the stake, Lord Newton snapped at Baron Putney. The old mound of flesh was particularly infamous for citing financial science to justify whatever policy would benefit his Marburg Central Banking Trust, and more often than not, citing the very same spurious science whenever said policy inevitably came back with disastrous results. Lord Newton regarded Putney's ideas as heresy, though Lord Wingate suspected that Theo's reservations had more to do with Putney calling it a science than anything else. And even if massive unemployment should occur, it would present a golden opportunity for recruitment, Lord Wingate said, addressing his comments more toward Lord Harlock than anything else, indicating a need for reinforcement on the issue. The army chief was remaining suspiciously silent for this part of the debate. He's letting me soak up all the animosity, Wingate realized. Yet another petty political gambit. I believe I've heard enough, Lord Stolos said. The Illyrian connection is to be closed at once. But, Blackpool spluttered. My lord, surely you can't. My decision is final, Lord Stolos said. Rest assured, there shall be plenty of war work to go around. Your factories won't sit idle for long, and we shall have need of airship transport for logistics as soon as operations begin. Now then, is there anything else that needs addressing? Silence. Then I believe we are adjourned. And that's that.
That was great.
Yeah, very good planning.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is this? Can you share the screen, please, Tarek? I'm not my thing will crash if I'm sharing the screen. So, I can't. Tarek had wanted me to share a video clip. He put it in private chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to show this because every time you present, and it's done with these amazing accents. Your voice work is impeccable. I just have to show this because I freaking find it hilarious. This is what I imagine every time you speak. Okay, hold
All
on.
right, go
Is
ahead.
it showing?
I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not sharing audio.
I've got it with shared audio.
Okay.
You have it with shared audio? Okay.
I say, Jeremy, isn't that Reginald B. Skiffworth, a young upstart chap who's been touting the merits of a united European Commonwealth? Why, yes, I dare say that's the fellow. Oh, let's get him. And I disagree.
I knew that clip would come in handy.
Yes,
one day.
indeed.
I am going to burn your bureau to the stake.
The line about financial sorcery, that was fucking brilliant.
I'm going to burn your.
Yes. We've definitely been seeing a bit of financial sorcery going on these days.
Yes, and what was I going to say?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Don't you just love imperialist wars?
Oh, yes. Just
Yeah.
wait till they figure out what a racket war really is.
Oh,
Oh, I can't wait for that.
oh yeah.
It's a racket, all right.
More profiteering.
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
just
really,
a few months ago I finally dug up the audiobook of War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. That thing will make you absolutely fucking furious.
That's one hell of a name, too.
Oh yeah.
Blue Teddy narrations. Oof. Drive-by disagreements? How dastardly.
Yeah.
Most uncouth, I say.
Uh,
Very nice indeed. I believe it is our friend Tark's turn.
all right, so before I begin, I was telling this to the guys in the background or before the stream began. I wrote something while working with Wise.
Yes.
This is just a little exchange. It's maybe about 3 sentences I wrote between Mordred and King Arthur. Just to set the scene, the idea is that Mordred is about to sacrifice himself for the good of the country, and King Arthur is asking him what his motivation is for doing this. And Mordred responds with this: "I hate you, father. I hate you more than you will ever comprehend. My disdain began the day your seed entered my mother's womb. It is with this last act that my hatred for you will be known throughout the land. I will succeed where you have failed, and in doing so, give my own life. I do it not for this country nor its people. I do it because knowing you will suffer, having to watch your only heir die, finishing what you never could, will keep me sated, even in hell's darkest pit." And that's it.
That's good.
Nice.
Real good.
Yeah, that's some, for sure, definitely some real interesting stuff.
Yes, and I do like melodrama too.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. Well, it's time to leave the realm of kings, lords, weeaboos, and finally go back down to street level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last we left off, Avion. I thought something broke for a minute. Last we left off, Aviana nearly had her arm cut off because the guy who gave her grocery delivery job thought she stole from him. Merrick came to her defense and got her out of trouble, and now the two of them are off to go sell the pendant that Aviana stole from a dead body to get some money. And that leads us to where we are today.
Okay.
Aviana and Merrick watched as the old man behind the pawn shop's wooden counter. As he looked over the pendant, his eyes carefully observing the light's reflection as he held the pendant in his bony hand to the candlelight. "How did you say you came about this again?" the old man asked, looking down at them, scratching his bushy gray beard. "I told you, sir. My parents left it to me," Aviana said, trying to suppress a giggle in her throat. as hard as she could, but yet could still feel a few giggles slip out. The man nodded as he put the pendant down and sighed, rubbing the bridge of his wrinkled nose. Well, the best I can give you is 30 dharma. 30 dharma? It's silver. Surely it's worth a bit more than that, Aviana asked bluntly, looking up into the man's dull green eyes. Sir, it's... Merrick started biting his tongue. Aviana watched his face contorted, almost as if in pain to complete his lie. A precious family heirloom to her. Surely you can give a bit more than that. You're fortunate I'm even offering 30. Many people have been selling their valuables just to have enough money to eat, the old man said plainly, placing the pendant on the counter, the light from the candle bouncing against his bald head. Aviana sighed and let out a sigh of disappointment and hung her head down, looking towards the wooden floor. All right, I'll take it. Very good, the man said, taking out a collection of coins and began to count. After a moment, Aviana looked up to see him putting the coins into a small bag and extended his arm to hand it to her. She took the purse and looked at the pendant again as the memory from the house played in her mind. She shook her head, stopping the thought, and turned her attention back to the shop owner. Thank you very much, sir, Aviana said, bowing her head slightly before walking towards the door with Merrick behind her. The two of them exited the store and walked back onto the snow-covered street, as a trotting horse with its rider and other pedestrians passed them by. She felt the cool air beginning to nip at her nose and ears and quickly pulled the hood over her cloak over her head. It was late afternoon, and the sky, despite being darkened by the clouds, she could tell it was going to get even darker soon. So where did you want to eat? Aviana asked, turning to Merrick, who was rubbing his arms before stopping and breathing into his hands, his breath hanging in the air. Anywhere there's warm food and a warmer fire, Merrick replied, his stomach growling as the two stepped into the street. I really want to go to the Scattered Star Inn, Aviana said, looking down at the bag of her dharma. If we go there, you'd spend every dharma you have. I know of a place. It's not as nice, but it's pretty good, Merrick said as he began to lead her down the street. After a while of walking, the two of them found themselves on the wharf of the trade district. Aviana stopped and looked towards the noble district as Merrick continued on. The noble district was separated from the trade district by a bridge running over the ocean. While one could see various buildings from the bridge, there were two in particular that always drew people's attention. One was Carsley Castle, that sat atop the largest hill in the noble district, towering over almost everything else. Large stone walls surrounded the keep and other buildings that made up the castle. However, in the morning, one could see the golden tip at the top of the castle's keep, which would shine brightly in the morning sun. To the southwest of the palace, just on the coast, where the shadow of the hill nor castle could touch, was another large structure. It was the only part of the Mage College that stood above the campus wall, the Tower of Tyrion, a large ivory tower that stood above all other structures in the city, including the castle keep. She could see that the tower was already starting to radiate its green aura that would occasionally glow through the night. No one seemed to know what caused the emitting light from the tower, but it was always an eye-catching sight. Aviana stared entranced at the beauty of the glowing tower, unable to look away. Her mind conjured thoughts of mages performing great feats, spitting fire from their hands, summoning lightning, creating blizzards with just a gesture. She had even heard that a few could part the clouds from the sky like a hand wiping away dust. Aviana, come on, Merrick called out, his voice snapping the daydream from her mind, which was replaced by the smell of seawater and the sight of Merrick waving towards her. She walked towards Merrick, who was standing under a two-story stone and wood inn with a sign on its wall that had a black bear with a fish in its mouth. Merrick opened the door for her, and the two walked in. The tavern was lively, as large, bushy-bearded sailors sat at their tables, drinking without a care in the world. Some had their boots on the table until they were scolded by the tavern maiden, by the tavern maiden serving them, only to walk away and then put their feet back up. Along with the sailors, there were some city residents speaking to one another as a roaring fire sat in the west end of the room, crackling and popping. Aviana was about to step in before Merrick stopped her and whispered, "Take out 6 coins now and don't let anyone see the purse." Aviana nodded, digging her hand into the cloak pocket and pulling out 6 coins, holding them in her hand. They found an empty dark wooden table and 2 similarly colored chairs and sat down as Aviana observed her surroundings. The inn had a jovial atmosphere to it. People were laughing, others told tales of their time at sea, some were eating their meal quietly, and a few were just enjoying the roaring fire while rubbing their hands together. Though the taverns felt nice, the scent of salt water and what she had to assume was sailors that hadn't washed in months did give the tavern a very distinctive smell. The interior was also pretty dark due to the use of dark wood for the floors and tables, and its misshapen and warped windows struggling to let in what light was outside. The only useful sources of light were coming from the fireplace as well as several candles on the tables and walls, though admittedly the roaring fireplace and burning candles did provide a warm and comforting heat that began to washing over her, allowing her muscles to loosen and letting her recline comfortably in her chair. Her stomach began to growl again just as the tavern maiden arrived. She was a thin woman, wearing a gray skirt with a white shirt and a black corset. She had dark curly brown hair that ran all the way down her back, and a small oval face with brown eyes. "What can I do for you two today?" the maiden asked with a soft smile. I would like some hot cider and the tavern stew," Merrick said aloud. I would like those also as well, please," Aviana said with a nervous smile. "That'll be 2 dama each," the maiden replied. Aviana nodded nervously and looked down at the dharma in her hand. "Why couldn't she just tell me how much?" Aviana whined to herself as she attempted to calculate the total. After After a moment, when she thought she had the right answer, she hesitantly opened her hand and slowly counted out 4 dharma aloud, looking at Merrick to see if he stopped her. Thankfully, he didn't, and she put the coins on the table. The maiden swept the dharma off the table and walked into her hand and walked away. You really need to get better. You really need to try and get a better grasp of mathematics, Aviana, Merrick said. But it's hard. Besides, it's not like I ever use it much anyways, Aviana replied, staring down at the table. I'm just worried that one of these days you're going to be cheated, and you'll never know it, Merrick responded. Can we talk about something else, please? Aviana said, sounding slightly frustrated. Merrick sighed and rolled his eyes. Fine. What do you want to talk about? Well, what were you doing in the wards this morning? You said you were there, Aviana asked, lifting her head back up to look Merrick in the eyes. Oh, that. I was looking for work, Merrick said, his eyes avoiding her gaze. Aviana noticed and spoke more seriously, putting more pressure into her voice. What were you really doing? Merrick sighed and sat up straight in his chair, folding his hands. I was at the orphanage. I was paying my respects. Aviana stopped and felt her heart sink in her chest as she slumped against her chair. It was her turn to avoid looking at him. I'm sorry, I didn't... Aviana began, but was unsure of what she wanted to say. When was the last time you were there? Aviana shifted in her chair at the question. I haven't been there since last winter. Merrick shook his head and sighed. Look, I know it's not something you... Please! I can't. Aviana struggled to finish the sentence. Words were getting caught in her throat and unable to find their way out. Merrick nodded and dropped the subject as the two of them sat in silence. Aviana recomposed herself, wiping half-formed tears from her eyes. Thankfully, the tavern maid came back to their relief and handed each of them a wooden cup filled with a warm brown cider, with steam rising out of the top. The smell of apples and sugars overwhelmed all sense and teased Aviana's nose as she took a deep sniff. The warm steam felt good against her face, and it made her body shiver in delight as she wrapped her hands around the cup and took a small sip. The sweet and savory flavor fell onto her tongue, which became overwhelmed with the sweet, warm drink, causing a large smile on her face as she put the cup down with a satisfied gasp. It was then she heard Merrick laugh. I haven't seen you smile like that in ages, Merrick said, trying to suppress a grin. Well, I haven't tasted anything this good in ages, Aviana retorted before taking another sip of the cider, savoring every drop. If the cider's this good, I can't wait to taste what the stew tastes like. I'm sorry, let me try again. If the cider is this good, I can't wait to taste the stew. Merrick chuckled and shook his head, causing his long, dirty blonde hair to bounce and shake. The smile now as clear on his face as the snow outside. As the two of them enjoyed their drinks, the tavern door flew open, slamming against the wall as a gust of wind howled into the tavern, causing everyone to jump and stare at the open door. A man in a large fur coat walked through the door, closing it behind him, shaking the snow off his shoulders and head. He pulled the coat off his body and hung it on the wall. He was a younger-looking man, at least compared to most of the other adults in the bar. Aviana guessed he was somewhere in his early 30s. He was stout, with a white undershirt and green vest clung to his broad shoulders, and his green cloak hung tight around his neck. He had an average round face, dark green eyes, and thick eyebrows, which furrowed as he seemed to be lost in thought. His hair was dark brown and messy, the back of it reaching as far down as his neck, with bangs hovering over his eyes. Strung to his back was a large brown leather bag that rustled with every step. The man finally looked up from the floor and saw everyone staring at him as he knocked the last of the snow off of him. As he took notice of everyone, he stood in the doorway as his expression became one of bewilderment. He looked like a confused bear before his eyes lit up and he realized just how loud his entrance was. "Go about your business. I didn't mean to cause such a ruckus," the man's bassy voice said in a friendly and apologetic tone. Everyone continued to give him a confused look before they slowly went back to their business. The newcomer walked through the dining room straight to the bar. As the man walked by their table, Aviana noticed that sticking out of his bag was the neck of a light brown lute. "Do you think he's a skald?" Aviana asked Merrick excitedly. "Him?" Merrick scoffed. "A skald is supposed to be graceful and have a voice that can draw hundreds. He entered like a clumsy, confused bull, and with a voice like that, I don't think he could even attract flies," Merrick said audibly, causing the newcomer at the bar to turn around and look at him and Aviana. Aviana noticed the man gave a smirk before turning his face back around facing the bar. "I think he heard you," Aviana said quietly, taking another sip from her cup, as she watched Merrick shift awkwardly in her chair, lowering his face a bit. In the moment of silence, Aviana was able to hear some of the other conversations that patrons were having. Some of them were still telling their tales from the halls of their latest fishing trip. Others were just talking about things and goings around the city. And some were even discussing their visit to far-off places she had only heard of, like Al-Ashad and Lukeisha. It's Lukeisha. However, one conversation in particular had caught Aviana's ear. "Did you hear someone broke into the Chancellor's office last night?" one man asked. "This is the first I'm hearing about it. What was stolen?" the man across from asked. "That's the odd thing. Nothing was taken. In fact, the only reason they know is someone broke in was because they found the window unlocked," the first man responded. "Sounds to me like the Chancellor just forgot to lock his window. The man isn't as young as he likes to think," the other man replied, laughing. Aviana turned her head back just in time as the maid brought their food on a wooden bowl and placed it in front of both of them, as well as spoons, and a loaf of bread that was placed at the center of the table. The bowl contained a thick broth with carrots, onions, leeks, and beef floating at the top, bouncing up and down the bowl like waves on the ocean. Aviana savored the smell as she did with the cider. It had a slight salty smell, but the melding of vegetables and beef gave it an alluring aroma. Aviana dipped her spoon into the bowl and pulled out a helping of carrots and beef with a little onion and placed it into her mouth. Her eyes widened as she chewed on the mixture, her lips shifting into a satisfied smile. The flavors melded together, producing a savory, satisfying taste. The beef was well cut and had a solid, slightly chewy texture, while the vegetables were somewhat soggy from the broth. Each bite released an explosion of flavor that made her shiver in delight. Without thinking, Aviana began to eat faster and faster, taking spoonful after spoonful. After a moment, Merrick grabbed her hand tight, causing Aviana to look up. People were staring at her. The regular city folks looked somewhat appalled, while the sailors were laughing. Aviana felt her cheeks go red as she put the spoon down and sank into her chair, pulling her hood over her face. After a few moments, everyone went back to their business, and Merrick began laughing. "Well, at least I know the stew is good," Merrick said, taking a spoonful of the stew and placing it into his mouth. His eyes lit up at the moment the meal entered his mouth, and a moan of delight left his lips before he quickly recomposed himself. Aviana smiled watching him eat and sat up straight but kept her hood down as she reached over for the bread. The exterior of the bread was brownish yellow and somewhat crispy. Crumbs would fall onto the table as she tore a piece from the loaf. She brought the piece of bread to her mouth and took a bite. Unlike the bread at the storehouse, the interior was soft and easy to chew, and far sweeter than the stale crumbs and moldy bread she had grown used to. It was almost too much for her. It had been months since she had a meal that was this warm, and even longer since she had one this delicious. Merrick took notice and chuckled, tearing a part of the bread and dipped it into his stew before taking a bite. After a while, all that remained of their meal was empty cups, bowls, and scattered crumbs that littered the dark table. Aviana sighed contentedly as she enjoyed the warmth of the building, as well as the relaxing atmosphere. The roaring fire and crackling and popping every so often, the soft and idle chatter of other patrons mixed with occasional laughter, and the smell of fresh cooked food blowing in from the kitchen, almost masking the more unpleasant odors. Was this what it was like? Aviana asked, looking up at the ceiling. What was like? Merrick inquired. Having a home, she responded, the warmth and contentment starting to leave her, only to be replaced by a familiar chill. Merrick sighed, and she heard him move his chair, then felt him gently place a hand on her shoulder. It was similar to this, but the biggest difference is that a true home is somewhere you feel safe and loved. You may not want to admit it, but I know things weren't always easy, but the orphanage was your home. Matron Alessa, Taryn bless her, she loved you. She loved all of us and did the best she could to provide. Aviana tilted her head back down and felt something on her cheek, and she wiped it away with her hand. Looking at it, she discovered a tear rolling down her finger. Merrick tightened his hand around her shoulder, and she returned to see him smiling. Merrick had a beautiful smile. It was one that would get other people who didn't even know him to smile back when they saw it. But for her, his smile was special. It was the only one that could make her heart feel at ease and make her truly believe that everything was going to be okay. Aviana could feel her face turn red as she wrapped her arms around Merrick, giving him a hug. When she looked up, she could notice Merrick blushing and turning away. Aviana let go, her cheeks still glowing. And I think that'll be it for this week.
Oh,
I really like Aviana and Merrick.
Yeah, it's very, very shy. I'm getting less crotchety Vin from Mistborn.
You have something you want to say, Carl?
I did like it. I did like it a lot, especially the food descriptions. That's always good.
Mm-hmm. It was making me hungry, even though I just had lunch.
I have been craving beef stew for I wrote this months ago, but I have been craving beef stew for a long freaking time.
So
I'm just disappointed that I only get cider in the winter months around here.
So, who is this Merrick chap, and why is he not treating Ivania like a bad digestive accident?
Okay, so I mentioned this in the previous one. You weren't here for this.
I didn't have a computer.
Okay, so Merrick and Aviana grew up in the same orphanage, and Merrick he watched his family sort of die to brigands or something. He actually doesn't know what ended up killing his family. And from that day on, he kind of promised himself that he would be this protector. He would be somebody who stood for justice. And Merrick didn't grow up in Tyrion. He grew up in a completely different village. His family, his mother and him moved here before she passed away due to getting ill on the journey. And so he kind of made it his life's goal to stop injustice when he sees it. And he does not like the way people treat Aviana. But he kind of quickly realized that, talking back to adults is sort of the way you get in trouble. So he's more about physically protecting her rather than like he's about it's kind of a mixture of both, but he understands the culture. He just really doesn't like it, which is why he defends Aviana.
Then he's a blasphemer.
There is okay, I'm just gonna say this
He's
right
a
now.
heretic.
No, he's not, because there is no set religion in this world. There isn't. Because my interpretation of this is that if God comes down every 5 years telling you exactly what he wants, I don't think there's any way to misinterpret that. So it kind of just, I kind of think it would destroy the use for religion.
That is a good point.
So
That's
Not a
interesting.
bad idea.
isn't there a state religion in Tyrion that says that the gods come and all this other stuff, and she doesn't have a name, so the gods don't care anything about her. So therefore, it's blasphemy to care about her.
It's not, it's again, it's like, it's not a state religion. It's just a bias. Like, it just comes to a bias because of this, because again, it's not that the god himself said, "Oh, fuck this particular little girl," and fuck this little girl in particular. It's more
screw this rock in particular.
it's not.
So the people were being jerks. Then they were just using the religion as an excuse.
It's more like, here's the thing: the city just got off of a war like 3 years ago. They're still recovering. It's sort of like she's a scapegoat. She's just different. That's the whole thing. She's different. So what do we do with people who are different? We hate them. We put all of our problems on them.
That's what I always do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I burnt down that city.
Okay. So I've got a couple options. One is finish the prologue of Rise of the Dark Queen, and and the other one is at least my personal answer to the locker room question: what if a Balrog and a dragon had a fight?
That's interesting, because I'm both a dragon and a Balrog, because I used to be a Balrog back in the day.
Yeah, but then I took a flame of voodoo to the knee.
So, thoughts. Which one did I do?
Do the Balrog one. The
Yeah,
dragon
do the Balrog one.
That sounds fun.
All right. Well, it's just a big demon that I made up.
Balrogs aren't demons. I'm offended.
Well, I know they're corrupted angels, which are basically demons.
You're dissing my identity.
That's just your opinion.
We're objectivists here, Balerion.
Yeah, this is erasure of angels. This is like offensive. So cancel done.
I'd like to see you try.
Let's have a public falling out.
You suck!
Death to you. You can tell I'm very serious about this too.
Let me see, where is it? I have something that I was saving for this very thing. Oh, it's in the reaction one. Okay. Where is it? Ooh, I think I have it. Have it right here.
You get the fuck away from here! So did you like it? Did you like it?
I bet what he was about to say to that was fuck off. Because it's obvious from his first reaction before they were asking, did you like it? Was, no, I did not like it.
You're an
Yeah.
asshole.
Oh, which one was that? I think it was like an Adam Sandler one.
No, I don't think it wasn't an Adam Sandler one. It was actually As Above, So Below.
Oh, that's right. It had to be. It had to be As Above, So Below. I'm pretty sure that one was it.
Either that, yeah, or the Chernobyl diaries. The Chernobyl, where he's like talking about the mutant turtles in the Chernobyl.
I don't remember that part from the miniseries.
Oh, I miss midnight movies. Those were great.
Yeah, or like when like Slaver Brian became the meme of that particular group for a while.
Hey, Brian, you used to own slaves.
No, I don't. I did not own slaves. Yeah. Let me find the beginning.
That's usually where it starts.
Yeah.
That's so banal.
Yeah. Okay. So allow me to share my screen since this book is published. So you can read it at any time you want. Priced attractively at $15 on Amazon. Please support my Patreon. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. Anyway,
Support this channel. Don't forget you can use PayPal. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get monetized. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Monetize Malachi. Hashtag.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to his OnlyFans.
Wish I had that, but unfortunately, no.
Oh my god.
Let's see. I'm just scrolling through it. So this is actually chapter 15. The near total blackness of the great hall beyond the tunnel presented the duo's first challenge. Growling, Vagar spat a bit of fire out of her mouth to give them some light so that Aemond could grab a torch and wrap it with some oil-soaked cloth. As he held it up, the darkness was stayed off slightly, but not by much. Beyond a large chasm was a broken bridge, and he could see a forest of large geometric columns stretching high up toward the cavern ceiling, though the top was just beyond the range of the torch. Vagar glanced around interestedly, claws scraping the stones as he prowled to the edge of the bridge. The single bound, she glided across the gap and landed lightly on the other side. This place seems empty, she remarked, eyes flicking from side to side. Aemon nodded, passing the torch to his left hand to give his other arm a rest. Agreed. Baring her teeth, Vagar padded through the columns, body language eager for a fight. There was something rather unsettling about how utterly silent this place was. Not even a hint of wind gave this place anything other than the impression of an empty tomb. Some kind of life would at least make it at least a little less disquieting. Let's see how high this place goes. Vagar spread her wings and glided upward, spreading more and more light as they rose toward the ceiling. It took them a few minutes to rise near the center of the cavern, and when they did, it was pockmarked with holes and rents in the stones. Aemond held up his torch to get a better impression, and when he did, he noticed something very interesting about the columns below. Some of them had severe burn marks scratched on the rocks. Was that a dragon? He asked automatically. Vagar's eyes narrowed as she hovered in the air, carefully examining the marks. No, this is not a dragon's work, she hissed, sniffing the air. It smells like sulfur, like the volcanic caves under the withered heath. What do you think this could be? Aemon pulled out his sheathed bow from its spot and strapped it to his back. Something dangerous? It's something big at the very least, Vagar growled, moving deeper into the mountain. As they flew through the columns, Aemon quietly assessed the sizes of the burn marks. Some of the burns were blacker, and those seemed to be the cave of claws, odd bull's feet of all things. They were as big as a wagon. Huh, Eamon pointed around. You're right. Whatever did this was pretty big. For 2 days they traveled in near dark, Eamon periodically replacing his torches as Vagar snacked on the large amount of meat they'd stocked up. How far do you think we still have to go? He wondered, wrapping a cloth around one of his 4 remaining torches. Not quite sure, Vagar admitted, flicking her tail absently as she glared into the shadowy darkness. This place makes me uneasy. Casually, Eamon slid up to Vagar and whispered, For the past little while, I've been sensing something watching us. Yeah, Vagar's voice was equally quiet. I've been smelling something since we got here. At first I thought it was just old scents, but I've been hearing some sounds that are too big to be small animals. Friendly or not friendly? Eamon slowly walked out into the darkness. Hey, he called. We mean you no harm. Please, we're just trying to pass through. Quiet! The voice was high-pitched and skittering. You'll wake the monster. Who, me? Vagar bared her teeth and blasted the air with a massive jet of fire. The blast revealed a group of at least 100 short, stocky orcs wearing blocky armor with sharp edges. Their helmets resembled some kind of ravenous fish mouth with a large underbite. The creatures huddled back from the dragon, chittering and whispering among themselves. Now the real monster, the leader said desperately. Please come with us. Vagar cut off her blast, instantly suffusing the area in darkness. I am a dragon. I'm the biggest monster there is. Not like this, the short orc leader whispered. It's... A loud rumbling came from further down the cave, just as a bright red light suffused the cavern, even brighter than Vagar's own flames. Oh, bollocks, the dragon muttered. I think we're about to find out what made those burns. As the red light became more intense and the growls became louder and louder, the orcs chittered and ran up the columns quickly toward the ceiling. Cowards, Vagar growled, lashing her tail and snarling. Come on, Eamon, let's see. What sounded like a volcanic eruption blasted through the cavern just as a wall of flame began spreading across the floor. Get on! Vagar grabbed Eamon around the waist with her jaws and tossed him onto her back. Grunting in surprise, Eamon only had enough time to tie the top straps of the saddle before the black dragon split her wings and hurled herself into the air. The fire burned a dark red as it touched the stones, intensifying rather than dissipating as it devoured the stones. What kind of monster are we dealing with? Eamon wondered, eyes darting around the burning area. As if his question had summoned it, as if rising from the flames, a creature formed from the fire of the earth rose through the flames and spread vestigial wings formed from smoke. Bull horns curled around its head and from its forehead, and a crest of flame ran down its back. Pieces of armor adorned the monster's body. Eamon could make out a breastplate, a face mask with an additional set of horns, and a black backplate running down its spine. Bracers and shin guards adorned its limbs, giving it an even more fearsome impression. Holy Whatever Vagar's curse was, the demon's bellow of fury swallowed it. Still bellowing, the beast rushed forward, spreading its wings aggressively, and leaped into the air, a flaming battle axe appearing at its fist. Eamon drew back his bow and fired directly at his forehead. By chance, it went slightly astray. The demon screamed as the arrow struck it directly in the eye. Blue smoke trailed from the imagery as the demon spasmed in the air and clutched at his face. Snarling, Vagar swung her tail at the creature, slamming it into a column. The cracking sound made Eamon wince. We need to minimize the destruction, he called. We're too far underground to escape a cave-in. Bloody bollocks, Vagar growled, rising higher into the air and blasting the creature with bright crimson flame. The demon howled and raged and pushed itself away from the column, wrapping its wings around itself as a shield against Vagar's fire. The black dragon kept on blasting her flow, but slowly the creature began advancing. We have a problem. Eamon drew back his bow and fired. The arrow burned through the creature's wing and struck its chest just above its breastplate. The demon backed away, clutching at his chest. I'm not doing enough damage, and neither of you are you. What do you suggest? Eamon swooped up. Vagar swooped upward, glancing around. Eamon glanced around as well, pulling his coat over his mouth to keep the smoke out of his lungs. We need to get out of here, he whispered. I can't breathe. Vagar immediately turned and flew off towards some stairs, moving upward deeper into the mountain. Just stay with me, she said. I'll get you out of here, little brother. Just as the demon bellowed in fury, they came out in another, even larger hall, soaring further into the mines. Covering his mouth, Eamon looked around, coughing and spluttering as smoke began suffusing the area with the presence of the demon. I think Eamon's eyes caught a side room with a number of old, empty pieces of armor lying in front. Over there, he pointed toward the room. I think I have an idea. What? Vagar growled as she landed in front of the room. I think there might be something in there that we could use to kill that thing if I run out of arrows. Eamon coughed as he undid his saddle straps and leaped out of the saddle. Inside the room was an armory filled with old armor and weapons. At least, that's what Eamon assumed it was. Quickly, he noticed a large number of spears lying on the ground, their spears and shafts still long and shiny. Quickly, he grabbed two and rushed to Vagar. I think I can beat him with these. He coughed again. Vagar nuzzled him. Whatever happens, little brother, she muttered, I'm with you to the end of the line. Eamon leaned his head against her forehead. Let's do this. Together. Gorgonoth's cloven feet slammed against the stones of the dwarven carved stairs. The invader had to be punished for coming into his domain. The pinpricks from that thing's arrows still stung, especially the one that had blinded him in one eye. Growling, he nursed his blinded eye with his gargantuan hands. It felt cold, and that scared him. Cold was bad, just as too much heat was bad. He could feel his body cracking and cooling as he glared around with his single eye. Gorgonoth had to kill that thing and devour its soul. Perhaps he could leave this place after all this time, go out in the wider world. It had been long since he had devastated the earth. Perhaps it had been long enough. Abruptly, he heard the flapping of wings just as the dragon fire blasted him in the side of the head. Gorgonoth snarled and turned, summoning his battle axe as his enemy crashed into him, ripping it into his chest with its powerful claws. The thing on his back struck at him, shoving a spear into his remaining eye. Screaming in pain, Gorgonoth roared and hurled the dragon away, clutching at his eyes. The world was in total blackness, with only a few outlines beyond his sight. Growling, Gorgonoth blasted out with an explosion of flame ire, fusing the entire room with flames. Eamon had his face covered in a scarf, but that was the only measure of thick clothing he had on. The heat in the room was unbearable. This monster was so strong. He tried stabbing me a few times, but the spear hadn't done enough. It was probably the fact that his arm wasn't strong enough. He glanced down at the spear he held in his hand, then grunted. The tip had melted to unusable slag. Quickly, he threw it aside and picked up the second spear as they made a second pass toward the demon. I want to try something, Eamon said quietly. Do you trust me? You're going to do something really bloody insane, aren't you? She asked. He told her his idea. You are bloody insane, she growled. But I'd be lying if that wasn't why I like you. Grinning widely, Eamon unbuckled himself from his saddle and ambered onto Vagar's haunches, then slid down her tail until he reached the tip. Once there, he clung on as hard as he could. Get me close and throw me! Vagar growled and swept forward, island wings stirring the air only slightly as she approached the blind adversary. Fire spiraled around the room, heat becoming more and more intense as they neared the demon. As soon as they got close, Vagar spun in the air and lashed her tail toward the enemy. Eamon released the tail and let himself fly through the air, spear gripped in both hands as he passed over the flames. The demon screamed in pain as he struck the creature's chest, spear tip first. For a moment, Eamon hung there, smoke blinding as the demon flailed around, trying to dislodge him. Hot black blood fountained from the wound, spraying across Eamon's chest into his mouth. Horrible pain flowed down his chest from the burning blood. It was like candle wax was poured onto his chest, only far, far worse. Screaming in pain, Aemon let go of the hot metal spear and fell, just as something struck him in the back, flinging him away. He tumbled through the air over the flames and struck the ground with a loud crack. The heat was so terrible, he couldn't breathe. His mouth and chest and back were ablaze with pain. Slowly, Aemon let the pain take him over. Vaguely, he heard his dragon roaring in rage and the demon bellowing in response. His eyes closed. Vhagar screamed and blasted her enemy with a powerful torrent of flame. The monster fell backward, hand upraised to defend himself from her wrath. "You hurt Aemon!" she roared, drenching him in crimson dragon fire. "I'll kill you!" The creature stumbled back, but the demon's flames were spraying towards Aemon's broken body. Halting her attack, Vhagar wheeled in the air and flapped toward her little brother. As she landed beside him, she extended her wing claws toward him. Delicately, she nudged him and gasped and he felt like a freshly dead deer. He didn't move at all. Horrible burns were across his chest and back, and several ribs were clearly broken. "No." Vhagar picked him up and cradled him in her claws. "No, Aemon, please don't be dead." She felt wetness on her face, something she'd never thought she'd feel. Dragons didn't cry, but she was, over this fragile, insane, brave human. Tears still flowing down her scaly face, she spread her wings, still holding Aemon's broken body, and soared upward toward one of the cracks in the ceiling. Slowly, she set him down on the edge, against a rock so he wouldn't roll off into the fire. That done, she turned back toward the demon and snarled deep in her throat. "You will pay for that." With a roar, she tucked in her wings and dove at her enemy. As she shot screaming toward the blind creature, it swung wildly at her with its fist. Vhagar raked its arm with her powerful claws, leaving great gashes in the flesh. Still roaring, the black dragon shot her head forward, digging her teeth into its neck, ripping away large chunks of skin. Black blood fountain into her mouth. The heat washed through her mouth, but Vhagar was used to fire, and her flame was far hotter than this beast. With a roar that shook the foundations of the mountain, she blasted the creature directly in the chest with a jet of flame. The monster was hurled onto its back, hands above its head as Vhagar bathed him in flame. As she kept attacking, Vhagar felt her core begin to wear out, the fire within her growing dim. "No," she growled. "I have to kill this monster. I will kill him." With a roar, she let loose her last remaining reserves of fire in an explosive burst. But it wasn't red. Black flames surged from her jaws as the reserves of fire inside her burst to life. Vhagar flapped her wings and kept on blasting her enemy in flame. The fire consumed the demon, licking up him like a lock of fat wood. Slowly, the fire throughout the hall died as the demon fell backward, its entire body slowly cooling and cracking as it solidified into a huge chunk of metal. Vhagar landed on the blackened stones, then threw back her head and spread her wings. The roar that she unleashed was more powerful than any roar she had ever given. The earth itself shook as she vented her challenge to the world. "I am Vhagar, the Black Terror," she crowed. "Any creature that dares to challenge me will perish." Abruptly, she remembered what she had lost in the fight. Aemon! She flapped upward shot through the hole in the ceiling to where her rider was lying on the ground. She nudged him with her snout, trying to urge him to wake up, but it was no avail. "Come on, Aemon," she whispered, resting her snout against his forehead. "We won. Wake up. Please wake up." Tears flowed down her face to splatter on his wounds, steam rising as the skin knitted itself together with only a few scars. But still, he did not move. "Mighty Savior," Vagar turned, teeth bared at the orcs who had seemingly come from nowhere. We will help the brave young human. A tall, pale creature with scars running down its face seemed to be in the lead. What can you do? Vagar growled, glancing down at Eamon's broken body. We know many of the elven arts of healing, the orc explained, walking over to Eamon. Reverently, he touched his forehead and checked for a pulse. He lives, he yelled. Vagar threw back her head and roared again, this time in joy. Tell the healers to be ready. The orcs gently picked up Eamon's body and ran through the upper caves to what looked like a large city built into the thick rock of the ceiling. A few scouts rushed away, fast feet carrying them far ahead of the pack. Vagar galloped along the ground, leaping over the gaping holes in the ground. She did not want to leave Eamon alone. And that's the end.
I can't wait to get to
Damn.
that part of the book.
That
I
cliffhanger,
can't
man.
wait. I can't wait.
That's something. That's
Thank
real.
you.
I also wrote my own Balrog fight, so there's not much fighting going on anymore.
I'm on the Balrog side. Why these interlopers have to come in? How would you feel if a bunch of interlopers came into your home and started mucking things up? They're just no. They have no manners.
Inconsiderate adventurers.
They could at least have brought their visiting cards with them.
I'm sorry. I'm just remembering.
At least let him know that he's coming so he has time to tidy up the place. I mean, this place, you've not given me a moment to prepare. I was going to start some cleaning yesterday. I mean, as it stands, this thing is just a pigsty.
I would have had coffee ready for you. And cake
Oh,
ready.
a friendly Balrog. That would be fun.
No, it has an apron on. It's trying. It's dusting the room. It's trying to get things ready to go.
Yes. Yes.
That would be really.
Take
that'd be
that.
I have to admit, and I am so sorry for this, Dunn, but the whole thing with the guy being basically having his entire rib cage turned into a crater, all I could think about was that Rick and Morty episode, and all I could hear was, "God damn it, Morty! You had to have a dragon, huh? You had to have a dragon, Morty, and now look at you! You're dead, Morty! You're fucking dead!"
I was a Balrog character in an RPG once, but it was kind of a parody RPG.
Yeah, you're playing as a Balrog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Ooh,
bound to
better.
be a parody.
Becoming better. Oh man, I gotta. You see that comment? Yes, he wants to come on to do demon voices with do heavy
Yeah, the
metal
bubble
vocals.
cap, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta have a voice off with becoming better.
Listen
You
to
hear
that.
that? I challenge you.
Oh yeah. we
Oh,
could all
shit.
do
I
that.
defy you to the field of vocal combat.
Oh shit, son!
Die.
You dare challenge me?
My teeth are swords. My claws are spears. My wings are a hurricane.
My voice is living death.
Oh, shit. Shit, now I'm tempted to try.
You shall not pass.
I could just
Wizard,
imagine.
you shall not pass. Cut.
I'm sorry. I'm imagining Neph now just like Gandalf. She's looking at this Balrog, just kind of drops the staff. She's freaking out, just whispering, "You shall not pass."
That's not a fake word.
Well,
Professor Gandalf says, if you do not study, then you shall not pass.
So I assume that you've seen the what is it, the how it should have ended with Harry Potter skit where they actually make that joke.
Yeah, that's probably what I fun.
oh, that would
Professor-
be so funny.
Oh, they actually did it. Or it's just like we have our new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Professor Gandalf. You shall not pass.
Well, that's rather harsh. Classes haven't even started yet.
Yes.
He takes 200,000 points away from each school.
Hold on. I want to try.
Also, one of my teachers had that as a little homemade poster on the on one of their classrooms back in high school. I can't remember who it was, but that was like posted on the door of their classroom, and I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was indeed
Eric
very
wants to have a
funny.
go, I think he said.
Hold on. I want to turn. I want to turn to do Demon Boys.
He wants to go.
I want to go. Just give me a minute. Just give me a second. Okay. My reign started at the earliest light. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of something to say. It needs to be poetic.
Just say die. You can just say die.
No. Oh, sure. I could just say die. Yeah, let me be like every other devil in hell. No, it needs to be more theatric. Hey, you know what? Come back to me next week. I'll write something down.
Or you could always do a thing like Hades from the animated Hercules movie, where he's just coming in there. Hi, Hades. How are you? Lord of the Dead. Oh, is that you?
Lord of the Dead.
Look here, we gotta say this whole hero business. That's old hat. You know what's cool? Being evil. Everyone wants to be evil these days. You know, come on, all the cool kids doing it. What do you say?
Evil's where it's at, man. Evil's where it's at.
I can't do a good James Woods, but what do you say, buddy? How'd you like to make a deal? I think that was more Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, that's very Jack Nicholson, who was originally going to play Hades at one point, but then he asked for a percentage of the gross, and Disney
Damn.
said no.
That's bold.
Yeah, apparently,
he did it for Batman, and he's still making money to this day off of Batman.
Damn.
Like every time he buys something, every time somebody buys a DVD, Jack gets a royalty.
Yeah, and Disney no like that.
Yeah, Disney no like that. No like that at all.
Nope.
They don't.
Yeah, apparently, almost every single guy they brought in to audition for Hades was doing that. The dark, evil, I am Hades, Lord of the Dead thing. And James Woods, he didn't feel comfortable doing that voice, so he pulled out the the Hollywood agent used car salesman gig. And apparently, he loved it so much. He has jumped at every single opportunity to play that Hades character, no matter how little it pays.
Here's the thing. I think I think Hercules is one of the only returning worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3 where he's still playing Hades.
Oh yeah, yep.
And it is terrific.
Alrighty. Well,
still
thank you all.
over the Japanese dub.
Dang. Well, well.
Maybe next week I'll read the fight I wrote with the Balrog.
That would be cool. But, my friends, we have been going for 2 hours. I believe that we shall call it good for today. Thank you all for coming. We will see you on Monday when we conclude our journey into Joshua David Bellin's Jurassic Park and Aliens, and how that's a family value, anti-family value, how they're pro-family values movies.
But isn't there?
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Tomorrow doing the Lord of the Rings film.
I believe that we will be talking about the animated Lord of the Rings films on Monday.
Oh, okay.
And then we're going to watch the Hobbit movies over the course of this week, which should be interesting, especially in comparison to the hour. So it's going to be a 9-hour movie, and comparing it to an hour and a half long movie, which is going to be interesting.
We're not
Or
going
is
to do
it
all 9
7
hours
and a half?
at once, I hope.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not insane.
Good.
We're
Good.
going to do one a day. We're only going to do one a day. So
Good. That's
Anyway.
early.
anyway, we will conclude it there. Adios.